Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my beloved sisters in Islam. Today I want to remind you of something powerful. The Prophet said this world is temporary enjoyment, and the best enjoyment of this world is a righteous woman. Sahih Muslim, subhanallah. A righteous woman is not just about how she dresses or how she speaks, but how she carries herself with wisdom, dignity, and most importantly, taqwa, God consciousness. A smart woman in Islam is not measured by degrees, wealth, or fashion, but by how she adheres to the guidance of Allah and His Messenger. Let's reflect together on 7 rules that smart, strong, believing women never break. A smart Muslim woman understands that modesty is not just a piece of cloth, it is a lifestyle, a mindset, and a reflection of her heart. When we speak of modesty in Islam, we often limit it to hijab or outer clothing, but modesty or haya is much deeper. It is about how a woman thinks, how she speaks, how she walks, and even how she interacts with others, both men and women. A woman of intelligence never compromises her modesty because she knows it is not a restriction. It is a form of honor given to her by Allah. She recognizes that her worth is not in being seen by people, but in being valued by Allah. The world teaches women that beauty is in revealing, in showing more, in seeking attention. But Islam teaches the opposite. The more precious something is, the more it is covered and protected. You don't find diamonds lying open on the street. They are hidden, guarded, and protected in vaults. In the same way, Allah has honored the believing woman with haya, so that her dignity is never in the hands of others but protected by her taqwa. A smart woman knows that true freedom is not in doing what society tells her, but in doing what pleases her Creator. She does not dress for fashion trends, nor does she seek validation from social media. Her confidence does not come from how many compliments she receives or how many likes she gets. Her confidence comes from knowing she is obeying Allah. When she covers herself, she does not feel ashamed. She feels empowered. She walks into a room with dignity because she is not trying to sell herself for attention. She knows that Allah sees her, and that is enough. Her speech is modest too. She does not use her words to flirt, to gossip, or to degrade others. She speaks with clarity and purpose, avoiding vulgar language or loud, excessive joking. She understands that her voice is not to be used to attract, but to inspire and communicate wisely. The Prophet said, modesty does not bring anything except goodness, and that goodness reflects in how she behaves in public and in private. A smart woman also knows the difference between being confident and being arrogant. She does not hide herself out of insecurity, but rather out of obedience. She knows that Allah gave her beauty, but He also gave her a responsibility to protect it. She is not ashamed of being beautiful, nor does she use it to manipulate or tempt. She knows her looks are an amana, a trust, not a weapon to compete with other women or to attract the wrong kind of attention. She has firm boundaries. She does not allow everyone access to her presence. She respects herself too much to be used or played with. She doesn't chase validation from men. She doesn't fall for sweet words or empty promises, because she knows that the woman who has Allah in her heart has everything she needs. She waits for the right time, the right person, and most importantly, the right path, because she knows that barakah only comes through halal. She guards her modesty even online. She doesn't post pictures of herself in ways that contradict her values. She understands that virtual life is still part of her accountability. Just because something is behind a screen doesn't mean Allah can't see it. She knows that every post, every caption, every comment is a reflection of her inner world. And so she remains careful, not paranoid, but responsible. And when she sees others who may not be practicing modesty, she doesn't look down on them. She makes dua for them. She was once on her own journey too. A smart woman uplifts, she doesn't shame. She invites through kindness, not through harshness. She remembers that modesty is one of the first things that will be taken away in a decaying society. When people lose their modesty, they lose their standards. And when standards are lost, the line between right and wrong begins to blur. But she remains firm. Even if people laugh at her, even if she is called old-fashioned, she stays true to her Deen, because she would rather be strange in the eyes of people than be displeasing in the eyes of Allah. She remembers the hadith of the Prophet. Every religion has a characteristic, and the characteristic of Islam is modesty. And her modesty is not weakness, it is her strength. It is her statement, it is her shield, and most importantly, it is her obedience to her Creator. That is why a smart woman never compromises her modesty. A smart Muslim woman never misses her salah, because she understands that prayer is not just a ritual, it is a lifeline. It is her connection to the Creator, her anchor in a world full of chaos, and her protection against the whispers of shaitan. Salah is not something she fits into her schedule. It is the very foundation of her schedule. She knows that no matter how busy life gets, nothing can be more important than standing in front of Allah 5 times a day. She understands that Salah is not a burden but a mercy. It's a moment of stillness, a spiritual reset, a conversation with the one who knows her better than she knows herself. When the world turns its back on her, when she feels overwhelmed, confused, or broken, she turns to the prayer mat, not as a formality, but as a sanctuary. It is in sujood where she pours her heart out. It is in ruku that she bows her pride, her stress, her ego, and reminds herself that she is a servant of the Most Merciful. She doesn't delay her prayers for the sake of dunya. She doesn't let meetings, shopping, or social gatherings distract her from her primary duty. When the adhan is called, her heart responds. She doesn't wait for the perfect moment. She makes the moment perfect by praying. She knows the Prophet said, "The first matter that the slave will be brought to account for on the day of judgment is the prayer. If it is sound, the rest of his deeds will be sound." She doesn't take that lightly. This woman, no matter where she is, home, work, university, or traveling, makes Salah a priority. She keeps a prayer mat in her bag. She knows her prayer times. She arranges her plans around her Salah, not the other way around. Even if she's tired, even if it's cold, even if she's under pressure, she stands up and says, "Allahu Akbar," reminding herself that Allah is greater than every excuse. She also understands the deeper meaning behind Salah. It's not just physical movements, it's a spiritual dialogue. Every word in Surah Al-Fatiha is a personal exchange with Allah. When she says, "Guide us to the straight path," she is not just repeating words. She is sincerely asking Allah to guide her heart, her decisions, and her future. When she says, "You alone we worship and you alone we ask for help," she is grounding herself in tawheed, in surrender, and in absolute trust. This woman knows that Salah is her source of strength. When life throws its tests, when she feels betrayed, anxious, or uncertain, she turns to prayer. She remembers that the Prophet, when faced with distress, would rush to Salah, not to complain, not to vent to people, but to find peace through worship. She does the same. She knows that her du'as are heard, that her tears are seen, and that every sujood brings her closer to her Lord. Even during her hardships, she doesn't abandon her Salah. In fact, she holds on to it even more tightly. She understands that Salah is not just for moments of peace, it is a path to peace. Even when her heart feels heavy, even when she's struggling with focus, she still prays. Because she knows Allah looks at effort, not perfection. And every time she makes the effort to pray, even when it's hard, she is building a fortress around her Iman. She also knows that Salah teaches discipline. It teaches her patience, humility, and time management. When she prays Fajr, even when her body wants to stay in bed, she is training her soul to choose what pleases Allah over what pleases her nafs. When she prays on time, despite the distractions, she is building consistency, the foundation of every success. A smart woman teaches her children the value of Salah, not just by words but by example. Her children see her stop everything and pray. They hear her whispering in sujood, they watch her make dua with sincerity, and they learn that prayer is not something to be rushed but something to be loved. She turns her home into a place where Salah is honored, where prayer is part of life, not just a task on a checklist. She also takes care of her prayer's quality. She strives for khushu, that inner focus, that presence of heart. She reminds herself that she is standing before Allah. She slows down, she reflects on the verses, and she tries to improve. She doesn't pray like a robot. She prays with intention, with love, with humility. And when she misses a prayer due to genuine reasons such as sleep or illness, she feels it. She rushes to make it up. Because to her, missing Salah is like missing oxygen. She feels spiritually off when she neglects it. She asks Allah for forgiveness, and she gets back on track. Because she knows that consistency is more beloved to Allah than occasional bursts. This is why a smart Muslim woman never misses her Salah. Because she understands it is her soul's fuel, her heart's anchor, and her direct connection with the one who created her. She guards her prayer, and in return, Allah guards her life. A smart Muslim woman never follows the crowd blindly because she understands that the path to Allah is often lonely, unpopular, and full of tests. She doesn't measure right and wrong based on what everyone around her is doing. She uses the Qur'an and Sunnah as her compass, not the culture, not trends, and definitely not the opinions of people who have forgotten Allah. She understands that if the majority is doing something, that doesn't automatically make it right. In fact, the Quran reminds us that most people do not understand, and most people are not grateful, so she is cautious. She doesn't just go with the flow. She stops, reflects, and asks, is this something that will bring me closer to Allah or further away from Him? She is not someone who gets carried away by the noise of the dunya. Just because everyone is wearing something, watching something, or celebrating something doesn't mean she has to join in. She doesn't need to fit in when she was created to stand out. She is not afraid to be different, because her goal is not to be liked by the people. It is to be accepted by her Creator. She understands that even if the entire world applauds her, but Allah is not pleased with her, it means nothing. And even if the entire world criticizes her, but Allah is pleased, that is everything. She knows that Islam came as something strange, and that those who stick to the truth will also be seen as strange. The Prophet Muhammad said, Islam began as something strange, and it will return to being strange, so give glad tidings to the strangers. This hadith gives her strength. It gives her peace when she sees people mocking her for wearing hijab, or for refusing to participate in questionable trends. She smiles knowing that being strange in this world might just mean being honored in the next. This woman doesn't follow influencers blindly. She knows that followers are not the same as leaders in the sight of Allah. Just because someone has a platform doesn't mean they have guidance. She doesn't confuse fame with wisdom. She filters what she consumes. She asks, is this content good for my heart? Is this pleasing to Allah? And if the answer is no, she walks away, no matter how popular, no matter how entertaining. She values her soul more than her entertainment. She doesn't join movements, causes, or ideologies just because they are trending. She studies, she researches, she asks the people of knowledge. She wants to know if this movement aligns with Islamic values or contradicts them. She's not easily swayed by emotional slogans or viral campaigns. Her identity is rooted in Islam, not in temporary waves of popularity. She is firm, grounded, and principled. Even in her speech and humor, she is careful not to imitate people who speak disrespectfully or use foul language just because it's considered funny or cool. She doesn't laugh at things that Allah dislikes. She doesn't make fun of religion or use sarcasm that belittles faith. She knows the weight of words, and she knows that Allah hears every statement. She chooses to be intentional with how she represents herself. When she sees others going astray, she doesn't follow them. She makes dua for them, but she keeps her standards high. She understands that peer pressure is real, but Jannah is realer. She is not arrogant. She simply values her akhirah too much to trade it for temporary approval. She remembers the story of the people of the cave in Surah Al-Kahf, young believers who chose isolation over compromise. She draws strength from their courage, knowing that sometimes you have to walk away from the crowd to hold on to your faith. This woman also teaches her younger siblings, her children, and her friends that being different for the sake of Allah is noble. She leads by example. She speaks kindly, but she doesn't sugarcoat the truth. She teaches that following the crowd without knowledge leads to regret. She reminds them that shaitan beautifies what is wrong, and that the world can make sin look attractive, but that truth remains truth, even if no one practices it. She constantly makes dua for guidance. She asks Allah to keep her heart firm, because she knows how easy it is to get distracted. She reminds herself often of the verse, and do not follow that of which you have no knowledge. Indeed, the hearing, the sight, and the heart, about all those are one, will be questioned. Qur'an 17:36. This verse shapes her mindset. It keeps her alert, humble, and intentional. That is why a smart Muslim woman never follows the crowd blindly. She walks the straight path, even if she walks it alone, because she knows that at the end of her journey, she will stand before Allah alone, and only those who followed the truth will be truly successful. A smart Muslim woman never lets her emotions control her deen, because she understands that Islam is a religion of balance, not impulse. She recognizes that feelings are part of being human: anger, sadness, happiness, love, disappointment. But she never allows those feelings to override her obedience to Allah. She trains her heart to stay firm even when her emotions are pulling her in different directions. She knows that reacting based on emotion without considering the consequences can damage her relationships, her faith, and her peace of mind. So she pauses, reflects, and brings her emotions back to the remembrance of Allah before acting. She knows that Islam teaches us emotional intelligence through the life of the Prophet Muhammad. When he was hurt, betrayed, or faced opposition, he remained calm and composed. His responses were not based on how he felt in the moment, but on what pleased Allah. This woman takes inspiration from his example. She controls her tongue in anger. She restrains herself from responding with harshness. She doesn't say things she will regret later. When her heart is heavy, she doesn't go to people first. She turns to salah, to dua, to silent moments of reflection. She knows the Prophet said, "The strong one is not the one who can overpower others, but the one who controls himself when angry." She strives to be strong in that way. When she feels misunderstood, she doesn't react with resentment. She communicates with wisdom. When she feels rejected, she doesn't let her ego push her into proving herself. She remembers that her worth is not defined by people's opinions but by how close she is to Allah. When she feels sadness or grief, she allows herself to feel those emotions, but she doesn't allow them to make her doubt the qadar of Allah. She repeats, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un," not just with her lips, but with full belief that Allah never burdens a soul beyond what it can bear. She doesn't make major decisions in moments of extreme emotion. If she's angry, she waits before speaking. If she's heartbroken, she waits before posting. If she's excited, she waits before promising. Because she knows that stability comes when emotions are guided by Deen, not the other way around. She trusts the process of reflection, consultation, and prayer before jumping into conclusions. This kind of maturity takes time, but she works on it because she knows the reward of patience and wisdom is always worth it. In matters of the heart, she is cautious. She doesn't allow love to blind her from what is halal and haram. She doesn't chase after someone just because her heart feels attached. She checks her feelings through the lens of Islam. She asks herself, does this love bring me closer to Allah or further from Him? If it's the latter, she pulls herself back, no matter how painful. She trusts that letting go of what displeases Allah will only bring something better. She understands that love without boundaries becomes a test, not a blessing. She also keeps her emotions in check when dealing with others. When someone hurts her, she doesn't rush to expose or shame them. She doesn't react with vengeance. She understands the power of forgiveness, not because the other person deserves it, but because she wants peace in her own heart. She doesn't let grudges take root, because she knows holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person suffers. Instead, she makes dua for clarity and peace and leaves the rest to Allah. She also doesn't let jealousy or envy grow inside her. When she sees another woman doing well, she makes dua for her instead of comparing. She reminds herself that everyone is tested in different ways, and what appears perfect on the outside often hides struggles we don't see. She keeps her heart clean because she knows a pure heart is more beloved to Allah than one full of resentment. Even when she is struggling with Iman, she doesn't let her temporary low control her actions. She may feel distant from Allah, but she still prays. She may not feel the sweetness of worship, but she doesn't abandon it. Because she knows that emotions come and go, but Allah's mercy is constant. She keeps going through the motions with sincerity until her heart catches up. She regularly makes dua, "O turner of the hearts, keep my heart firm upon your religion." She knows that stability in Deen is a gift, and it requires effort and reliance on Allah. She talks to her heart often, reminding it that feelings are not facts, and that guidance comes when the heart submits, not when it rebels. That is why a smart Muslim woman never lets her emotions control her Deen. She honors her feelings, but she never worships them. She uses her mind, her knowledge, and her trust in Allah to guide her through the storms within. She becomes a source of calm, not only for herself but for those around her, because she is led by faith, not by impulse. A smart Muslim woman understands the value of time and never wastes it chasing what does not benefit her in this world or the next. She is conscious of the fact that every breath she takes is a step closer to her grave, and every moment that passes is an opportunity that will never return. She doesn't treat her time casually because she knows that she will be asked about it on the Day of Judgment. The Prophet Muhammad said, "A servant's feet will not move on the Day of Judgment until he is asked about his life and how he spent it." And this is enough to make her pause and reflect on how she uses her hours, her days, and her youth. She doesn't spend endless hours scrolling through social media without purpose. She doesn't fill her evenings watching drama after drama or constantly chasing the next fashion trend. She knows that while these things may offer momentary enjoyment, they don't nourish the soul. They don't bring her closer to her true purpose. She understands that the glitter of the dunya is often a distraction and that too much of it will dim the light of the heart. She chooses instead to invest her time in things that bring her value, things that build her character, her relationship with Allah, and her contribution to others. This woman structures her day around acts of worship. She protects her 5 daily prayers like precious jewels. She doesn't allow time to slip away until suddenly Maghrib has arrived, and she hasn't yet prayed Dhuhr. She knows that Salah is not a burden on her schedule, but the very thing that gives her schedule meaning. She sets goals for herself, not just in worldly terms, but spiritually. She makes time for Qur'an, for learning, for reflecting on the words of Allah. Even if it's just a few minutes a day, she is consistent, because she knows that small deeds done regularly are more beloved to Allah than large ones done occasionally. She also takes care of her time in relationships. She doesn't entertain gossip or idle talk. She avoids conversations that are full of backbiting, mocking, or unnecessary drama. She knows that what she says matters, and that her tongue is a reflection of what fills her heart. She chooses her company wisely. If someone wastes her time or leads her away from Allah, she keeps her distance with grace, not out of arrogance but out of protection for her Iman. She prefers the quiet company of a book or solitude in dua over a gathering that drains her spiritually. She balances her dunya responsibilities with her akhirah priorities. If she's a student, she studies with the intention of seeking knowledge to benefit others. If she's a working woman, she performs her duties with integrity and excellence, remembering that everything done for the sake of Allah is rewarded. She does not see her roles, whether as a daughter, a wife, a mother, or a professional, as a conflict with her spirituality, but rather opportunities to gain reward. She uses her time to serve, to contribute, to grow. She also takes care of her body and mind. She eats well, rests well, and seeks knowledge that enriches her. She doesn't waste time comparing herself to others, because she knows every soul has its own path. Instead of spending hours envying someone else's beauty, lifestyle, or success, she uses that time to improve herself and to thank Allah for her own blessings. She understands that gratitude is a form of worship, and time spent in appreciation is time well used.